A storm front approached, filling the skies with a darkened cloud, and an oppressive wind brought many of the trees in the royal courts toppling to the ground. But this was nothing compared to the truly appalling situation that had arisen, though King Rene was prepared to meet it head-on. Thousands of Sinistrum soldiers, mechaviliforms, stood in regimented formations before the armies of King Rene. The light infantry at the head of the opposing army were cybernetic creatures, humanoid but part metal, but mostly maggot. They were foul, unctuous creatures with white, slime-covered skin, and equipped with technologically advanced armaments. They had wide necks with large compound eyes and crushing beaks. Some rode on caterpillars the size of horses and held the banners of their king, the mighty Cardas Valor. In addition, holding fast behind these front lines were many other breeds and types, all allied together: harpies, centaurs, hydras, minotaur, even humans. There were gorgons and medusas, as well as creatures that had borne no mention in prior tales. Snakes. Vicious, scaly viper masters had travelled to fight alongside the Sinistrum armies. They had come from the Dark Citadel in the south. Among these snakes were the familiars known as Ophidia, a female warrior with pale skin and tall, slender frame, and Tepan, the shapeshifter and trickster. There was Sawscale, the viper with his armory of buzzsaws and knives, Hooknose, with his mighty tusks that protruded from his head like spears. The others, Coachwhip, with his tricorner hat, Black Monda, and Cottonjaw proved a formidable presence. But none of these foul fusiliers compared to the dark and terrible Malkarian. This tall figure with menacing proportions sat astride his coal-black steed, his face a mystery forever, concealed behind a plumed helmet, his eyes glowing bright red behind a dark void and an iron grate. Standing next to Malkarian was a man who was rather smartly dressed, though his choice of threads perhaps were more in keeping with someone wishing to close a business deal and set a good example, rather than participate in bloody hostilities. He was the true enigma in this immense gathering. He looked to be a gentleman in his 50s, with a mane of white hair, a stoic appearance, and eyes that were black as pitch, with red, dilated pupils. The two opposing armies faced each other, one clearly outnumbered by the other. King Rene looked on, and was in awe. There was no chance in hell of winning in an all-out confrontation with such numbers as these. The only option was diplomacy. Why diplomacy? Why did he believe negotiation was viable? Because he saw hope with the one stranger who seemed out of place among the hordes of the Sinistrum army. He saw optimism when he witnessed the black-eyed man standing there. This man was definitely in a position of authority. Biting the bullet, King Rene rode out to meet his enemy on horseback. Malkarian's stallion grunted and panted, exhibiting a growing restlessness. Its master reached forward with an iron glove and gave the side of his head a gentle pat. Finally, his hand stayed at the sword sheathed at his side. Black Eyes put up his hands, knowing the rash and belligerent nature of his general, and indicated to Malkarian to stand down. "Make no sudden moves!" His grip tightened on his katana hilt. Rene slowed as he approached the enigma. The stranger was indeed foreign to these parts. His features were like nothing he had seen, and those eyes were the devil's. Nevertheless, he seemed to exude an air of trust. Dismounting from his horse, King Rene continued to approach the man on foot. The enigma stepped forward, the two men meeting face to face. "I admire your courage and your wisdom." The black-eyed man saw the king in the highest regard. "These traits are regarded as high commodities among the Sinistrum." Silently, Malkarian turned his head away, as he did not share his master's views. "I'm here to discuss a peaceful alternative to war," said the king. The potentate was holding himself tall, falling upon his experience as a diplomat, and constantly mindful of his posture, his attitude. Knowing to speak clearly, even though he was anxious, he had no intention of revealing that he was. The enigma smiled. Those black eyes with two tiny red points at their core were like razor blades, fixed upon a point and probing. He had once thought the native peoples of this realm were barbaric and thuggish. It was nice to be proven wrong, once in a while. "I'm glad to hear it," the enigma replied frankly. "Under our borders we would enjoy many years of trade, and you would prosper greatly under Sinistrom protection. I am John, by the way, John Defoe." The black-eyed individual took the king's hand, agreeing to cease fire and allow talks to begin. Rene allowed himself a moment of curiosity. He had witnessed the sword at John's side, and felt that its size and dimensions, not to mention its ornate decorativeness, added a certain grace and a more refined edge. It was a lot smaller and lighter in appearance than the common broadswords that were wielded by his soldiers. John Defoe recognized this unique opportunity to show his potential ally the weapon. "It is called a katana," the man said, lifting the strap that held the sheath over his head. He handed the king the sword, which was more a piece of art than a weapon. "On my world, the world where we originated, it was a formidable weapon. Lightweight, it was forged by the artist's hand. Its steel melted and folded many times over to give it precise sharpness." "It is beautiful, such masterful craftsmanship." The king offered a humble smile. "It puts our own swords to shame," he added, handing the weapon back to its keeper respectfully. The king tightened his lips as though prompted to convey a rather bold idea. This required much confidence, and, throwing caution to the wind finally, he made his invitation. "We are holding a banquet. You and your dignitaries are quite welcome to join us if you like. We have wine from the provinces, venison, good music, and entertainments. You'll be our guests of honor." John smiled as he placed his sword at his side. "This is very thoughtful, my friend. We thank you, and may I say on behalf of all the Sinistrom that we would be thrilled and flattered to accept your gracious invitation." "Tonight then, evenfall." The enigma lowered his black eyes in response, and then turned to rejoin his army. King Rene did the same. He gave a deep breath as he walked away, filling his uneasy lungs, giving them the chance to overcome the highly sensitive task he had just undertaken, and knowing that it wasn't quite over yet.